Rainbow Reflections, Book 1, A Kind of Magic. Chapter 15, Action This Day. The semester pressed on, time seeming to fly once the leaves had fallen from the trees. Freezing snow fell in heavy heaps, blanketing the courtyard in glistening white. The students wore thick winter robes and were often seen drinking hot cocoa for each meal. Most students were also seen with their noses in their books on a frequent basis. As test week approached, more and more students were getting anxious. Some students broke down completely and went to the healing room to get a soothing potion from Fern in order to finish studying their notes. Others practiced their magic so much that they ended up getting weaker or even sick from overuse, causing their magic to block off momentarily. Ren, Zin, and Sarala studied together as often as they could, but even this was a difficult task. They still had to write essays, practice their magic, and work on their martial arts. On top of that, Ren and Zin had to rehearse for theater, where the test would be putting on a show at the end of the week. Ren was no longer trying to help Zin summon her magic like she had been for most of the semester. She was simply too busy. Zin had also given up with her magic. She was now focused on remembering important names and dates from magic studies and how to identify plants. If she couldn't perform magic, then she'd at least try to pass the classes that didn't require as much magic. Zin seemed to be getting better with Kung Fu and Tai Chi too, now that she no longer cared about the magic situation. Hyaktu thankfully didn't ask either twin about Zin's magic again, but that could have been because he was also busy grading homework and getting tests prepared. Ren was glad to see Zin putting more focus on her other studies, but she was still worried about her sister. The two seemed to be drifting apart, especially as they were so busy getting their work done and didn't have much time to talk. In addition to that, Ren tried to spend at least one day with Frost, though she wasn't enjoying her time with him. The only reason she didn't break up with him was due to how much easier it'd be to go along with it in the meantime. Both of them were dealing with copious amounts of homework and didn't need anything added onto it. There was also the upcoming Moonlight Dance, and Ren didn't want to go without a partner. A part of her hoped that she and Frost would get along well once they were at the dance together and not struggling through homework. But another part of her just wanted to break up with him and be done with it. December 14th soon arrived. The first years trudged through the falling snow to the Magic Studies classroom for their first test after breakfast that Moonday morning. Khurshid was waiting for them, wearing a long-sleeve robe. The students took their usual places and sat at attention, each of them anxious. Some students were shivering, though Ren couldn't tell if it was due to apprehension or the frigid room.
"Good morning,"
Khurshid said in his calm voice.
"As you know, today is your test day. You will be taking a written test. The test should not take you the entire class. I ask that, when you are done, you leave the classroom and go to the magic channeling room."
Each of the students nodded to his words.
"You will be taking your test on these mirrors,"
Khurshid continued, motioning to a box on the front desk.
"I have to listen to the test in order to grade them. The mirrors are locked on the test only, so don't try to access the AirNet or some other app to cheat. Come get a mirror, and you may begin."
The students did as he told them, grabbing a mirror from the box. They were already open on the tests. Khurshid probably had Hyaktu or one of the other teachers get the test together and the mirrors locked. Ren got to work right away. The test only contained 20 multiple-choice questions, which were fairly easy after all the studying she'd done. The last 5 questions were essay-based, but only required short responses. It was a simple test, and she finished it rather quickly. She clicked on the submit button after making sure she typed her name in the box at the top. Then she put the mirror on the front desk, like a few of the other students had done, and left the room. Ren entered the magic channeling classroom next door, wondering what Khurshid would have them do. More students joined her in the room until the whole class appeared. C3 was the last one to enter, probably due to double-checking all of his answers or writing so many details. Khurshid came in after him.
"Now, for this class, we'll actually be going outside. 2 at a time.
He told the students gathered before him.
We will be doing the obstacle course challenge again, but with a twist. This time, one of you will be making the obstacle course, just like how we've been practicing for the past few weeks. But then the other person will have to try to get through the obstacle course.
The students gasped, all of them looking over at Sarala in fear. Sarala's obstacle course had grown more brutal with each class session. None of them fancied going up against her. She seemed unbothered by the fact that everyone had inched away from her.
You won't be going into the obstacle course totally defenseless,
Khurshid went on.
You are allowed to use your wand to summon the elements around you to help you out. You can even summon the magic from within you. If you're able to manage it, you don't have to use your wand and can rely purely on your body to wield magic. I just want you to use magic to get across the obstacle course.
Ren raised her hand. Mr. Jihan?
Yes, Ren?
Do we have to do both parts, setting the obstacle course and getting through it?
No,
Khurshid said.
You will only have to do one or the other, but you must use magic no matter which one you do.
Do we get to choose who to go with? Sarala asked. Khurshid smiled.
My mirror has already chosen a randomized list. The first name will be the student setting the obstacle course, and the second name will be the student going through it.
And with that, he had the mirror read out the first two names, Ebony and Frost. Khurshid then led the way from the room, back to the freezing courtyard with the pair of chosen students. It had at least stopped snowing for the moment. Some of the students pressed against the window to watch the duo outside. However, their breath fogged the glass quickly that they could not see anything. Most of the students resorted to pulling their personal mirrors from their robe pockets and going over notes for plants and potions. Others practiced a bit more magic. How am I supposed to get through this test? Zin asked Ren. Ren frowned, only having a lame suggestion to offer. Just try to summon your magic again? Zin shrugged beside her. I guess there's no harm in giving it another attempt. I haven't tried in a few days. And if magic is supposed to be a defense mechanism, it might finally be triggered, Zin added, her echoing voice sounding a lot happier in Ren's mind. That's the spirit. You got this, Ren encouraged her. Your magic will come in no time. Frost and Ebony returned in a swirl of chilly wind, their skin tinged blue. Frost looked a bit shaken, but otherwise appeared fine for going through Ebony's obstacle course. Ebony's magic wasn't too powerful, so Frost probably had an easy time of it. Khurshid poked his head in.
Ren and Sarala,
he announced. Ren let out a small sigh of relief. She would be the one setting the obstacle course for Sarala, not the other way around. She and Sarala exited the classroom, closing the door behind them. A shiver ran down Ren's spine, and she began shivering uncontrollably. Stop it, she ordered herself. Focus on the obstacle course. Ren lifted her wand and commanded her wall of air to appear at the start of the obstacle course, right in front of Sarala. Yet Sarala had studied Ren's course plenty of times by now, and she merely lifted a rock wall to halt the rush of air. Sarala then scampered away, hurrying into the crisscrossing tornadoes Ren conjured up. But Sarala got through these easily too. She lifted more stones from beneath the snow, which stopped the air in its tracks. Ren was glad that she wasn't hurting her friend, but she also wanted her obstacle course to be more challenging. Air slides, she commanded sharply. About 10 different slides appeared in the air above Sarala. One of them sucked her up with a sucking sound, and Ren ordered her magic to whisk Sarala back to the beginning of the course. Yet Sarala again escaped by raising the earth beneath her and cutting off the airflow. Ren gritted her teeth in annoyance. If her magic was so strong, why couldn't she keep Sarala from advancing? She flicked her wand, summoning the giant tornado at the end of the course. This tornado was more powerful than the small swirls of wind, and it was not so easily defeated. Sarala lifted the earth in front of her and attempted to push it forward as a shield, but the tornado was too strong and forced her back. She then tried to make a tall earth wall, but she only succeeded in keeping herself from advancing. Finally, Sarala pointed her wand at the ground, opened a hole, and hopped down. Ren stopped her tornado as she saw Sarala pop up on the other side over the finish line. "She's definitely resourceful," she muttered under her breath, not expecting Sarala to easily escape. Ren and Sarala returned to the class, once receiving full marks from Khurshid. Ren was relieved that she wouldn't have to make it through anyone else's obstacle course, feeling worn out after creating powerful wind bursts in the bitter cold. The rest of the students continued to be called outside, Ren still shivering in the drafty room. Zin was getting antsy waiting around, but she wasn't summoned at all. In fact, she was soon the only student who had yet to go. Khurshid entered the room again.
"Now, we have 21 students here, so the odd number means one of you will have to go again with our last student,"
he said.
"Zin, you will be going with Sarala. Sarala, as you have already gone through the obstacle course, you will be recreating your own for Zin to fight through."
Ren's heart skipped a beat. Zin's eyes widened in shock. The whole room seemed to be more frozen than the snow outside. Everyone stared at Zin like she had just been sentenced to death. Even Sarala was horrified.
"Come on,"
Khurshid said.
"This is the last test."
Ren followed Zin and Sarala out of the classroom, crunching through the snow in a bit of a frenzy. There was no way she could let Zin face Sarala's obstacle course alone. "Don't do any magic for me," Zin told Ren, as if she knew what Ren was thinking. "But Sarala's course is so dangerous. Did he not see those spiky stones? She'll kill you." "Maybe it will finally trigger my magic," Zin replied, glancing over her shoulder at her sister. "It will trigger my magic." Ren did not have any time to argue the point more. She watched as Zin reached the start of the obstacle course, Sarala just behind her.
"Sarala, please tone down your obstacle course,"
Khurshid said.
"Make it so Zin can feel the rocks coming before they hit her, so she at least has a chance to get out of the way. Of course, Zin,"
he added, turning to Zin,
"you could always use your air magic to propel you over the rocks, like you're flying."
Zin frowned, looking doubtful.
"Ready, you two? Go!"
At once, Sarala raised the stone wall in front of Zin. Zin was at least expecting this after watching her menacing course several times, and she dodged around it before it slammed into her. But then Sarala ordered the ground to shake, and some of the stone turned into pebbles that darted beneath Zin's feet. Zin tried to prance over them, but combined with the ice, she slipped and fell.
"Use your air magic,"
Khurshid yelled out to her. Zin scrambled across the pebbles on all fours, her wand tucked away inside her snowflake-patterned robe. She finally managed to make it through, and Sarala stopped the vibrations, the pebbles returning into the ground.
"Remember to give Zin a warning,"
Khurshid told Sarala. Sarala nodded. She pointed her wand at different parts of the ground, commanding the earth to shake before shooting up. When the first stone rose from the ground, it wasn't as sharp as before. In fact, it was quite blunt. Ren was relieved, but the rock would still hurt Zin if it smashed into her. Yet Zin had gotten plenty of warnings and managed to get through the section of rising stones easily. She still showed no signs of magic, but at least she would survive the obstacle course. "Punching wall," Sarala ordered briskly. The final challenge rose in front of Zin just before the finish line. Punching at her, the stone soon caught her directly in the chest. It sent her flying back, the air getting knocked out of her. "Zin!" Ren shrieked, her hands flying to her mouth. "Are you okay?" Zin didn't answer, but she got to her feet after a long moment.
"Use your air magic to propel you over the wall,"
Khurshid shouted. Zin didn't show any sign that she had heard him. After all, his advice was useless. She eyed the wall from a distance for a moment, watching as it punched forward. Zin then hurried towards it, keeping her body bladed so she wouldn't be hit squarely in the chest again. But the wall slammed her once more before she could do whatever she was attempting.
Zin, try your wand again. Your life is in danger. Your magic will come. Remember when you faced Dad? Maybe it didn't come because you didn't have a wand to help you, but now you have a wand, so use it.
Ren practically screamed at Zin through her mind. Zin took her wand from her robe pocket and pointed it at the wall. Running forward again, she was only struck down. She repeated the process as if hoping her magic would suddenly leap forward, that her wand would take command to help her out.
Her magic's not coming,
Ren thought to herself.
I need to do something. I have to do the magic for her, or...
Ren turned to Khurshid, unaware that tears had been streaming down her freckled cheeks.
You have to stop this,
Ren urged him.
Please.
But then Zin suddenly stepped on the punching bits of wall and climbed up them like a staircase. She threw herself over the top of the wall and made it past the finish line. Ren stared in wide-eyed astonishment, hardly able to believe that her sister had made it through, without magic. Sarala let the wall drop at once, and the two hurried over to Zin, Khurshid following more slowly.
Zin, are you okay?
Ren shouted, not caring that she slipped over the ice numerous times.
Zin?
Zin was laying on the snow, not moving. Ren dropped beside her sister, the tears falling once more. She grabbed Zin's shoulders with her stiff hands and turned her around so she could see her properly. Zin blinked up at her in a daze, her face tinted blue.
Are you okay?
Ren choked out, dragging Zin up into a seated position. Zin winced, her ragged breaths coming out as puffs of warm fog.
I think so, but it didn't do any magic, did I?
Khurshid reached them at last.
No, you did not,
he said simply.
And for that, I'm afraid I can only give you a half pass. Truthfully, I should fail you completely, but you put in hard work in a difficult course. I have to give you some credit.
Zin hung her head.
Why didn't you use your magic?
Khurshid inquired.
She just felt a bit sick today,
Ren lied at once.
You can't do magic properly if you're sick, if at all. Plus, it's a hard test, and she was nervous for it too, as anyone should be.
Khurshid frowned at this.
True,
he said slowly.
But even sick or anxious students who attempt magic are able to make something happen more often than not.
We all have bad days, Sarala grumbled, toeing the snow with her boot. Khurshid sighed.
I suppose that's true as well,
he conceded.
Well, Zin, I ask that you work harder next semester. Go to the greenhouse, you three. That course took longer than it should have, and...
The minute bell rang.
Exactly my point,
Khurshid commented. Ren helped Zin to her feet.
Are you okay, Zin?
She repeated.
Can you walk?
Zin nodded, but still seemed dazed. She leaned a bit against Ren as the trio crossed the courtyard to get to the greenhouse. They barely made it when the final bell rang. The greenhouse was much warmer than the courtyard, the windows shut for the winter season. Much to the class's delight, they would be taking another multiple-choice test, identifying plants and the types of properties they had. The class sat down beneath different trees and used the school-owned mirrors to take their tests, while Fern paced around like a tiger to make sure they weren't cheating. The test was more difficult than the Magic Studies test had been, especially the questions asking how to identify a plant by taste or smell. Yet Ren still thought she did a decent job. She was happy that it was another written test, so Zin had a chance to pass. The first years then crossed the courtyard to the potions room with Fern when everyone was done. The room was frigid when they entered, especially after they had grown accustomed to the warm greenhouse, but it would soon warm up once they lit the row of cauldrons.
This test is a bit different from the potions we've been making all semester,
Fern told the shivering students.
You will be working in pairs instead of individually. However, one of you will work alone. The recipe will be a bit simpler for the lone student. Any volunteers?"
C3 raised his hand at once.
"Very well,"
Fern said, nodding to him.
2 to a cauldron, with the exception of C3. There is a different recipe on each desk. Call me over once you have finished."
The students broke off to form pairs at once. Ren saw Frost headed her way, but she went to stand beside Zin. Sorala got stuck with Frost, and it was clear she hated the fact by the way she clenched her jaw and tensed her broad shoulders. But Ren was still worried about her sister and wanted to make sure she'd pass the test.
"Ooh, an invisibility potion,"
Ren said, eyeing the recipe card on the desk Zin had chosen. "Should be fun," Zin commented.
It says that the water needs to heat up before we put any ingredients in,"
Ren murmured, scanning the recipe quickly.
"You go ahead and grab the ingredients from the storage room while I heat up the water."
Zin nodded and took the recipe with her. There was a storage room on the right side of the classroom where many plant ingredients and some crystals were kept. Ren watched her go, wondering if she should use this class time to speak to Zin privately.
"No, we need to concentrate on what we're doing,"
she told herself. She turned on the blaze beneath the cauldron sitting beside the table.
"Zin can't afford another half-pass, or worse."
By the time Zin returned with the ingredients, the cauldron water was boiling. The sisters then set to work. Ren read out the instructions while Zin prepped the ingredients. Some of the plants had to be trimmed to a certain size, while others had to be thinly cut. The plants also had to be an exact weight, so Ren put them on her scale before adding them to the cauldron. Since Zin was doing most of the preparation, Ren took it upon herself to stir. The room soon smelled sweet and rancid at the same time, some potions mixing together well and others burning. A few cries sometimes stirred the pungent air, but the twins ignored this as they worked. It was quickly apparent why they had to work in pairs for this test. The ingredients needed so much preparation and the potion required so much stirring. Ren's arm was getting tired, and she didn't look forward to doing martial arts that afternoon with a dead arm. She switched her grip, and which hand was stirring so many times, but it did not help her aching muscles. Once the potion was a purple hue, all Ren had to do was enchant it. But enchanting a potion required more than just waving a wand over it and adding elemental magic. The sisters had to come up with a rhyme for the enchantment to work, something that Fern never gave away with the recipe.
"What rhymes with invisible?"
Ren asked. "Divisible?" Zin suggested.
How about invisibility?
Tranquility, stability, humility. Ren scrawled out a line on the piece of paper in front of her, muttering,
"Enchant this potion so that everything it touches is cloaked in invisibility. Only reverse when there is true tranquility."
Zin shook her head. "That'll never work. What if a setting never becomes tranquil?" Ren snorted softly.
"It could be tranquil if everyone falls asleep,"
she pointed out. "What if the person is having nightmares?" scoffed Zin. Ren was glad her sister seemed to be having fun.
"Well, what do you think then?"
Zin bent forward, taking the pencil from Ren to scrawl something different. Ren read it upside down as she wrote it out.
"Enchant this invisibility potion, only reversing when there is no more motion."
Ren considered that for a moment, then nodded.
"I like it. So if someone becomes too still, the invisibility would wear off?"
Zin nodded. "Exactly!"
"Okay, let's hope it works,"
Ren said. She pulled out her wand and hovered it over the cauldron, then said clearly,
"Enchant this invisibility potion, only reversing when there is no more motion."
A swirl of wind entered the potion, turning the purple color darker. Ren and Zin glanced at one another, beaming. The darker a potion, the stronger it was. Once Fern finished looking at C3's potion, Zin called loudly for her. She approached them and looked down at the potion.
"Invisibility?"
she asked them, and they nodded.
It's certainly got a good coloration to it. And what was the enchantment you used?"
Ren and Zin repeated the rhyme in unison. Fern nodded.
You fail to say how the potion would work in the first place. Does it make a drinker invisible, or any object it touches? Let's test it.
Ren kicked herself mentally. She had lost points on the last potion she made after she didn't specify the drinker from any object. She bit her bottom lip nervously, hoping they'd still pass. Fern dipped the long ladle into the cauldron and held it up. She poured some of it onto one of her tattooed hands. Her hand turned invisible, and she moved her arm around, clearly waving her hand. She then allowed her entire body to fall still. After a few moments, her hand reappeared. She then drank the rest of the potion in the ladle. She turned entirely invisible, vanishing on the spot. Ren and Zin exchanged an eager glance as she reappeared a minute later.
Excellent work, you two, Fern told them. Who came up with the enchantment?
Zin raised her hand. Me!
Be more specific, Fern told her. But considering this works both ways, it's a good potion. I'll be adding it to my collection. So it's a pass? Ren asked.
Fern nodded, offering them a rare smile.
I only take the best potions into my stock.
Ren cheered and hugged Zin.
We did it! Just out of curiosity, Fern said, her face becoming serious once more. Who cast the enchantment?
I did, Ren said with a frown. Fern nodded slowly and walked away.
Do you think she knows I can't do magic?
Zin asked. Ren let go of Zin.
I can't tell her that the teachers already talked to Dad about this, can I?
She shook her head and settled on a partial truth.
I'm sure the teachers have noticed something's been up with your magic, but who knows if they actually know?
Zin sighed softly beside her. They got to leave the class once they turned off the fire under their cauldron and cleaned their table, leaving the potion where it was for Fern to collect later. The twins then headed to the eating hall together, forcing their way through mountains of snow and whipping wind.
Zin, now that we're done with the class, are you doing okay? Like, for real?
Ren asked her sister.
You were really dazed after you fell off that wall.
Well, I fell down. What do you expect? I don't like heights, and while that wall wasn't too high, it was still high enough to get hurt from.
Did you get hurt?
Ren asked in alarm.
Did you break a bone or anything? You could have told Fern at the start of plants.
No, I think I just have a bunch of bruises. It's no big deal. Ren frowned, but followed her sister into the eating hall, which was thankfully warm and smelled much more pleasant than the potion classroom. The two staggered over to the counter, which didn't have a line yet since the bell hadn't rung. They gathered their food and sat down at a table near the door. A few more students arrived early, including a few from the potions class. But Sarala still hadn't arrived, so Ren decided to push Zin a bit more.
Are we falling apart?
Ren queried Zin after a brief hesitation. Zin looked up at her. Why would you ask that? Ren reverted to speaking aloud, too.
I just feel like you're keeping something from me. And with all the schoolwork we've had to do lately, well, we've hardly been hanging out. I know that's my fault, too, since I hang out with Frost. But still, I feel that there's this ice between us.
It's Frost. You literally just said it. Zin chuckled. Ren snorted, then became more solemn-faced.
But seriously, did I do something wrong?
Zin sighed, the smile dropping from her lips. I just realized something that I didn't really realize before. And I don't know what it means.
What is it?
Ren asked, leaning forward.
Oh, Zin, it's not something to do with me, is it?
It is definitely not you, Zin said flatly, holding up her hand. Well, the Frost thing is kinda annoying, but this is something else, and I want to figure it out first.
Does it have something to do with your magic? If you tell me, I can help, she offered.
But Zin shook her head. I don't think so. Well, maybe it does. I don't know. Before Ren could ask anything more of her, the door banged open loudly. Snow was thrown inside with the chilly winds as Sarala entered. She saw Ren and Zin nearby and stomped over to them, almost as if she was causing the blizzard outside herself. "Frost made us fail!" she seethed, plopping down on the bench beside Zin and shaking the whole table. Ren gasped, her hand flying over her mouth.
He didn't!
"He did," Sorala muttered grimly. "After all the work I put into that potion, he made up the stupidest rhyme, and it didn't work. And he enchanted it before I could do anything. He's so useless. You better break up with him, Ren." Ren bit her bottom lip.
What does me dating him have to do with anything?
"Nothing," Sorala muttered. "But if I have to see Frost again, I'll punch his stupid face." At that precise moment, Frost had entered the eating hall. He heard Sorala's words, stared at Ren for a long moment, then backed out into the courtyard. The rest of their lunch was spoiled by Sorala's nasty mood. In an attempt to get Sorala to lighten up, and so they wouldn't be late, Ren beckoned them to follow her to the Kung Fu studio. They got there early and changed into their uniforms, then sat on the orange mat. Sorala seemed to be in a better mood once they were inside the studio. The trio chatted and played a few games of Yut before the minute bell rang, bringing plenty of the first-year students with it. Hyaktu and Khurshid entered the studio fast. Each student wondered what sort of test they'd have to take for Kung Fu, especially the few who just leveled up to the yellow or green sash.
"Hello, everyone,"
Hyaktu said cheerfully, pulling the door shut with a bit of wind magic.
"I know you've had a busy morning taking tests. The good news is that there are no tests for this class, unless you'd like to test for the next level. Just get to work on your current level's material otherwise. Next class, we'll be doing kickboxing and grappling matches non-stop as your test. But it's nothing formal that you have to win to pass. Just put in the effort and you'll be good to go."
Should we try testing for green sash?
Ren asked Zin as they got to their feet. Zin shrugged.
I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. I think I got the form mostly down, but I still have trouble with sliding my feet correctly, and my body hurts from magic channeling. Yeah, maybe we shouldn't test Zin. I'm not sure I have the balance for my kicks either,
Ren commented.
"There's no harm in trying,"
Hyaktu said, winking at them. "Is that a challenge?" Zin asked loudly, grinning.
"Is it?"
Hyaktu questioned, smirking.
"I accept your challenge! Test me!"
Zin yowled, causing everyone to wince or glare at her. Ren snorted.
"Test me too, then."
"And me,"
Sorala said. Hyaktu glanced over at her.
"You already want to test for blue?"
he asked. "Yes." Hyaktu rolled his eyes.
"Sorala, you're moving a bit too fast. But if you think you can handle it, then that's on you. Anyone else?"
A few more students agreed to test for their green sash, as none of the other green sashes had learned enough to move up to their blue sash. Ren, Zin, Morneo, Scarlet J, and Midnight Oven stepped forward to test first. It was more convenient to test multiple students at a time, so they each bowed to Hyaktu to open up the test. The 5 students were soon doing kick after kick, demonstrating techniques and showing off their forms. Once they were done with their white sash kicks, they hurried to the closet to grab their individual sparring gear. They put the gear on and returned to the mat. Ren got to spar with Midnight, Zin went with Morneo, and Midnight went again with Scarlet. Once the kickboxing matches were done, they geared down and returned to the mat for Hyaktu's feedback, covered in sweat and panting.
"Ren, you have good form, but you tend to lean too much into the strike,"
Hyaktu began.
"You also need to work on the balance for your kicks. Remember that good balance comes from keeping your head upright, your eyes locked on something that's not moving, and having a slight bend in your supporting leg. Zinnovis, your stances still need to be worked on. You are putting too much weight on your toes, which is bad for the knees. Keep more weight on your heels, and make sure your heels are pressed all the way to the ground. The heels should only come up when you're turning on the balls of your feet."
He continued to critique the others, then stepped back to observe them all for a moment. Each student was left wondering if they had done enough to pass their test. Hyaktu wouldn't allow students to continue if they were lacking the skills he was looking for at the particular level. If Ren lacked balance and Zin's stances weren't correct, Ren truly wondered if their father would allow them to advance to the next level. Murneo, Scarlet, and Midnight had all been at the Yellow Sash longer than the twins, and their kung fu looked better, especially Murneo, who was determined to train harder after he failed his test the previous week.
Congratulations, you five,
Hyaktu said at last.
You have all passed to the Green Sash level.
The students around them applauded as they took off their old yellow sashes and tied on the new green sashes Hyaktu passed. Ren beamed at her sister, then they hugged.
You Green Sashes can take a break for the remainder of class,
Hyaktu said, smiling around at them.
There's no point in learning new material that you'll forget during winter break. You may watch Sarala test.
Sarala glanced over at them from the other side of the room, where she had been practicing her form, her skin already slick with sweat. Her jaw clenched, but she didn't protest to the others watching. She instead stepped forward alone as the new green sashes moved aside. Sarala then bowed to Hyaktu to open up the blue sash test. The green sash level added yet more kicks, new techniques, and a second form containing advanced blocks. It took the remainder of the class time for Sarala to get through the test, which included a grappling match at the end, with Raimugi, who is an excellent grappler. The bell rang for class's end, right as the grappling match stopped. Since Sarala didn't require any gear for the match, all she needed to do was put her uniform top back on over her plain black shirt and retie her green sash around her waist. Appearing a lot less winded than her last test, she waited for Hyaktu's feedback, the entire class now listening in.
You have performed another good test,
Hyaktu said.
This now marks 3 tests in the span of about 4 months. Your balance was a bit wobbly, and sometimes you were striking to the incorrect levels. I would like you to pay more attention to the details. Otherwise, I will not pass you again in the future.
He was silent for a long moment, then smiled.
But congratulations, Sarala. You passed the blue sash test.
Ren cheered loudly for her friend.
It's so great that Sarala's a natural with kung fu.
Yeah, Zin replied in amusement. She's so good at it. They watched the sash ceremony, nobody caring that the second kung fu class had technically started. Once Sarala had the blue sash tied around her waist, they applauded once more. Sarala smiled a full smile. Her teeth were even showing. Ren couldn't help herself and ran forward to hug her friend before Hyaktu was finished speaking to her.
As you are now a blue sash,
Hyaktu said, trying to keep the amusement from his voice,
you will be enrolled in the Kung Fu 2 classes on Tuesday, starting spring semester. I expect you to take your time and work harder to earn your next sashes.
Yes, Mr. Saihan, Sarala said, her smile dropping.
Don't you dare stop smiling,
Ren scolded her.
You've got such a beautiful smile.
Sarala stared at her a long moment, then laughed. But the girls couldn't chortle for too long, as they soon had to gear up for sparring. For the next 30 minutes, Hyaktu had 4 kickboxing matches going at the same time. Once the 2 minutes were up, the next 8 people would step forward to do their matches. The matches, and the stench of sweaty bodies, seemed to be never-ending. After kickboxing was over with, they moved on to grappling matches. Hyaktu again had 4 matches running at once, Khurshid helping him keep an eye on the students. By the time class ended, Ren felt extremely weary. She didn't know if she'd be able to do Tai Chi with how sore her muscles were. But she, Zin, and C3 pushed through Tai Chi, where the 3 tested for their green fringe together. The 24 step was a form split in half between the white and yellow fringe levels. They only had to perform the first half to get their yellow fringe earlier in the semester, as well as 4 of the Qigong exercises, known as the 8 brocades. At the yellow fringe level, they learned the second half of the form and the rest of the brocades. For their test, they only had to show off the last 4 brocades instead of all 8 like they thought they'd need to do, and the entire 24 step. They did push hands to finish off the test. Each of them had shaky arms as they attempted to push one another over, then were rewarded with their green fringes. Next semester, we start with learning the 40 step, Hyaktu announced once they had tied their green fringes around their waists. Now, as a bonus, you three don't have to worry about doing any other push hands matches. Go ahead and take the rest of the day off and get ready for your art test on free day.
Thanks, Dad,
Ren said gratefully, thinking her arms would fall off by this point. Yeah, thanks! Zin cheered. C3 looked disappointed as he left the Tai Chi studio, but they paid no attention to him. The twins turned to the tower door, unlocking it and entering their home. Hyaktu didn't follow them in, instead walking off to the snowy courtyard. Sarala was in the family room, sitting on the couch. You're back early, she remarked. Got your green fringes? Yep, Zin said, grinning as she held up the stringy tail of her fringe. So now you're green in both martial arts. Ren nodded.
Oh, this is so exciting. We did good on our test today, didn't we?
Sarala shrugged. Apart from that disastrous potion. I didn't do as bad as I thought I would either, Zin said, smiling over at Ren. I mean, I don't know about magic steadies or plants, but I felt like I did a fine job on the test. Magic channeling was a fail from the start, but martial arts went good. Maybe I don't need magic after all. Ren blinked in surprise.
Is this the thing you were talking about earlier? The realization?
Zin shook her head.
No, but now it might be one.
Ren frowned.
When are you going to tell me?
When I'm ready, Zin replied mysteriously, and she headed for the stairs. Ren stared after her sister. She felt that something was still off, but she couldn't quite place it. She sighed, supposing she would just have to give Zin some space to figure out whatever it was. But at least her twin seemed to be getting back to her cheerful self again. What was that about? Sarala grumbled.
I don't know,
Ren said earnestly.
But anyway, I'm glad the day's over with. Just a few more tests left on free day, which don't require as much studying as all these magical ones.
At least that's only 2 tests for me, then. Sucks to be you, and still have 7 to go. Ren shrugged.
We signed up for all the art classes, so now we have to deal with it. It'll be fun, though.
Yeah, right, Sarala muttered.
You know, I was being serious back in Kung Fu,
Ren said. When Sarala looked confused, she elaborated.
You should smile more.
In your dreams, the other girl remarked, though there was definitely a smile dancing on the corners of her lips. Ren rolled her eyes and sat down on the couch across from her.
Anyway, you should smile whenever you ask someone out to the dance.
Sarala stared at her. What?
The Moonlight Dance, Ren said. It's in the rules that you must have a partner to attend.
But... Sarala shook her head. What?
It's to make sure everyone has at least one person to spend time with, Ren explained. Dad didn't want any of the more quiet students to feel left out, so he made that rule. That way, nobody's left out.
What if I don't want to go? Sarala grunted.
But it's so much fun,
Ren protested. Can I not go?
I mean, it's not in the rules that you have to, I don't think.
Good. I'm not going then. Ren grabbed Sarala's shoulders and shook her hard.
Sarala, please go. It's so much fun. There's lots of good food and dancing and music.
Ugh, Sarala grumbled, scrunching up her hooked nose. Sounds terrible. Apart from the food, perhaps. Well, good night. And she got off the couch and hurried up the spiral stairs. Ren blinked, then shouted after her.
If I wasn't going with Frost, I'd totally make you go with me.
I'd like to see you try, Sarala called back. What's going on? Zin's voice echoed.
Zin, take Sarala to the dance on Saturday,
Ren yelled. Okay, Zin replied. That makes my life easier if I don't have to find a partner. It's this Saturday? Sarala shrieked. You don't have a choice now, Zin laughed evilly. It's the least you can do for putting me through that obstacle course of torture.
Yes, Sarala, you owe her, Ren chuckled.
Ugh, fine, but I'm only going for 5 minutes. Sounds good to me, Zin replied. Ren snorted in amusement and leaned back on the couch. She closed her eyes and took several deep breaths, bringing her mind into a tranquil state. After a few minutes of quiet breathing, she relaxed and could feel an energy coursing through her sore body. She was just getting into what promised to be a good meditation session when she heard a small buzzing noise. The buzzing got louder and louder until she could no longer ignore it. She tried to acknowledge it by focusing on it for a moment, then allowing it to be part of her surroundings to block it out. But this did not work. Ren opened her eyes, feeling a bit irritated at the interruption. Was Zin trying to speak telepathically with her and ruin her meditation? She'd done that plenty of times in the past, and her voice would come through sounding like a distant hum in Ren's head. But Ren realized that she was no longer in the family room, sitting on the couch. She gasped as she saw tall plants all around her, most of them red or purple in coloring. The plants consisted of the tallest mushrooms and the craziest dancing trees she'd ever seen. Looking down, she saw soft blue grass, which rustled in a light breeze.
Where am I?
She whispered to herself. She narrowed her eyes. There was something on the other side of the small valley she had somehow ended up in. It looked like some sort of animal moving towards her. She tilted her head, trying to figure out what it was.
Is that the animal? She mumbled.
But then the plants around her vanished, the tranquil breeze disappeared, and she found herself falling face first to the ground.
Oof!
She sat up and shook her head dazedly, then rubbed at her small nose, which had smacked the ground.
That hurt,
she muttered. Ren glanced all around the family room, but she was quite alone. There weren't any sort of mushrooms or dancing trees around her, nor any animals approaching from the distance. Even the soft floral scent she had whiffed had disappeared.
I must have dozed off. I better just get to bed.
Ren got to her feet, glancing around the room once more. She didn't feel tired. Indeed, she felt quite awake now. But she still forced her feet to carry her to her room. Entering the purple-painted space, she instantly felt much calmer. She breathed in the plant smells, but the floral scent was not among the ones she detected. Ren got changed into her pajamas and hopped onto her bed, forgetting that she hadn't even eaten dinner yet. She pulled the fuzzy blankets around her and waited for sleep to come as her room fell dark. But she still felt restless. Ren sighed and got to her feet, the ceiling lights turning back on as they detected her motion. She grabbed a small watering can sitting on her desk, made sure there was water in it, then gave some to the plants around her.
That animal, what was it? Was it the one that I went out to help, which might have tricked me or hurt me? Is it the one that gave me the vision? Was it trying to warn me again? I wish I could go back.
She returned to her bed after setting the empty can down beside her door as a reminder to fill it with more water in the morning. Then she sat down with her legs crossed in the lotus position, keeping her back straight.
I'll just have to meditate again.
But she could not return to that strange valley even after quieting her mind. After trying, or not trying, for an hour, Ren gave up. She finally felt weary enough to fall asleep and hoped that she would come across the animal in her dreams instead. Yet her dreams were quite normal as she plunged into the ocean with Zin and Sarala at her side and Hyaktu behind her.